Sometimes those ideas, they are not coming from God, they are coming from ego, and it's very easy to confuse them with God's communication. And I learned that God's communication is different than aspirations. The best moment to make a decision is actually between consolation and desolation.
Interesting.
It's like, it may sound surprising, but going to see a therapist, counseling, it's part of learning who we are, and this will eventually build more healthy and better spirituality you have.
Your parents support your decision to join Jesuits?
And now they support. Yeah, there was a lot of turmoil in that. Look at the desire of your heart and try to see where your heart starts to flourish. Is it a meadow full of flowers, or is it a single flower and nothing more? It's very easy to pray when you are in a consolation.
Yeah.
It's a challenge to pray when you are in a desolation. The quality of your spiritual life, it should be measured by the fact that your life is traveling from one side to the other, like a wave. And suddenly this moment of prayer allows you to surface this chaos, and this has a healing power.
Welcome to Coffee and Heaven podcast. My name is Kasia Intrieri, and tonight we'll be talking about discernment. I am honored to welcome Father Piotr Jabłoński, a Catholic priest, Jesuit, theologian, and philosopher with a background in a civil engineer.
Indeed. It's good to be here with you. Thank you.
Welcome, Father. Is anything what I can add?
Maybe I should clarify, because when I listen about myself that I'm a theologian and a philosopher, it feels like those who's going to watch me and know me, they would be surprised as far as I am surprised right now. I'm educated in philosophy and theology, as every priest is educated, but I would call myself administrator now. I'm working at the university. I'm a deputy chancellor at Jesuit University Ignatianum in Krakow, in Poland. And this is taking huge part of my life now. Yeah. So I'm still a theologian, I'm still a philosopher, but this is like the background of my core, of what I'm doing the most right now.
Thank you so much. And I'm so excited to have you because I am passionate about discernment. Not because I know a lot, but because in my life I was struggling a lot about discernment. I was a few times on the Ignatian retreat, the silence retreat, and I see how beautiful and how clear discernment rules of Saint Ignatius are. So I want to share with others. And Father, is there any rule in your life which help you discern, and how you discern your priesthood? Did you know about Saint Ignacio?
I think I want to start with the first question you stated. The particular rule which might be applicable in my own life. And from the perspective of being an administrator, working at the university and facing difficulties like management issues that are typical for business life. There is one particular rule coming from spiritual exercises that is very helpful for me. And it says that wherever we expect bigger, greater good, we should also expect greater obstacles. And this is like, every time I face some sort of struggle, some sort of blockade, and I want to push forward to move something in a correct direction. And then suddenly I see that there are problems, challenges. And this is for me, and I experienced that many times, a signal that this might be a good direction. And not only from my perspective, but also from God's perspective. And then transposing that to my own discernment, how I became a Jesuit. You need to have time to discern. You cannot conduct discernment quickly. It's not a soup coming from a can that you simply open the can and you have your meal. No one is happy because of eating this kind of food. And that's why no one shouldn't be happy because of not having enough time to discern. It took me like 5 years to decide whether I want to be a priest or not. I had an immediate insight saying that being a Jesuit is an option for me, like a bling in my head. But after that, I finally joined the Society of Jesus 5 years later. And it was a blessing to stay in contact with God, to communicate with Him to learn the way how he wants to communicate with me, to learn the timbre, the color of his voice, and then to realize that this idea that was in my mind wasn't only something coming from me, but also coming from him.
I think you're touching also one thing which most of us have a problem, how to discern if the idea is from God, from us, or from other source. Because I think St. Ignatius mentioned that not every beautiful and honorable idea it's from God.
Definitely. And actually to recognize that there are those three different sources that can appear in my mind, in my heart, in my body as an idea, emotion, to recognize this is the crucial and fundamental to start any discernment. Yeah. To acknowledge that this can be idea coming from God, that this could be an idea coming from evil spirit. But there is also the third dimension, and actually this is the biggest one, that this idea can come from me. And to recognize that this is changing a lot. Yeah. Because then suddenly you see that there are those three voices present in my head, and to be able to undermine a little bit my position by saying, okay, this is what I see, this is what I have in my heart. I feel consolation, to use this technical expression. We can discuss that later. I feel consolation, where this idea, this consolation comes from. To see that, to recognize that, this is the crucial step to start any discernment. If you are unable to do so, if you are simply navigated through your life but through those emotions, there's no discernment. It's only bouncing from one side to the other. Yeah. Discernment starts when you are capable of saying, let's wait for a second. Wait a minute. What's going on here? Why am I feeling that way right now? Yeah. What is going on? Yeah. Who's talking to me right now? Is it God saying something to me? Or maybe this is some sort of discomfort that is present in my life, but I don't have time to recognize it. This makes everything far more complicated. This is from one side, but from the other side, far more rich. The abundance of voices.
And we were talking before we start recording about the silence and lack of silence. Do you think this have an impact on this, that it's more difficult for us to discern which voice this is? Is this a God or our voice or something from outside?
It's like, I think it's important to understand that spirituality, my inner life, it needs some conditions to grow. And one of them is silence, but not necessarily the silence in that mode that no one is talking to me, I'm separated from the world and stuff like that. I don't believe that. You might have a specific vocation to conduct this kind of life, but it needs to be discerned. What I want to say, it's like spiritual exercises offered as a retreat in our retreat houses, as Ignatian retreat. They give you this space to taste silence and to see how those voices can accommodate in my own understanding. However, you are not called to spend your whole life in the retreat house. Our usual call is to be in the world, to be contacted with people who are surrounding us, with our families, friends, maybe people who are called to proclaim them the good news. So then you need to learn how to transpose this conditions of silence, so we are able to live according to silence in everyday life. And this is complicated, especially when you will take into account, for example, the medium that's going to be used for all of our listeners. They will watch this through YouTube. They will see this advertised on social media, and this is how we will reach them. Our voice will be one of many. Yeah. But to stay focused. Yeah. To give space for God to talk in our life, we need to learn how to do it in the environment that is very noisy nowadays. And this is very complicated, but it can be achieved. I don't think that we are condemned by the social media and the digital world. It's more difficult, it's more challenging, I agree, but God is still active. God is still present in our lives. And he's still willing to communicate with us. So to listen to him, to be active, to be present, to hear that voice, this is quite an adventure.
Do you have any practical suggestion what we can do every day to like pay more attention or like spend more time in silence. What is your suggestion? How to, if someone listen to us, so what I can do to start to be more attentive to the voice of God or discernment?
You know what? One of the most important quotes in my life about the spiritual life comes from a Jesuit, Franz Jalic. He's was born in Argentina and then he migrated to Hungary. It's irrelevant. The relevant is the fact that he wrote a very good book about contemplation. And in that book, in the introduction to that book, he says that our learning about myself and learning about God, these are two sides of the same coin. Put some effort to learn about who am I, to learn about my emotions, to learn about my body, how my body is connected with my emotions, that the difficult parts of my life story, they can find some influence on my body. That's why I have those pains or I don't have something. Yeah. To learn about this universe that is hidden within me, this is the first step to learn more about God.
Interesting. And I love that. Before Jesuits retreats, I was more likely focused on rejecting my feelings during the prayer. When I was reading the saints, I have this idea that the feelings are bad, I have to reject them. So this was huge discovery for me that I'm supposed to look on my feelings and emotion. And this is something what I love on the Jesuits retreat.
Yes, and it's like if you are rejecting something connected to your body, you may find yourself in trouble when it comes to discussion about incarnation, because then you are starting to play this dangerous game about heresies. Because Jesus, Son of God, became man without pretending. And then it's like Ignatian spirituality is only one of many options telling us how we should learn about God's communication with us and those emotions, like everything that is happening in our not only minds but also hearts. This is a field where we can learn God's style of communication with us. But this is not easy in a sense, like it's not plain and simple. Because why this is not simple? Because we are not created according to some sort of pattern. We are created individually. So God is applying a lot of love to create us. And this love is making us created like a potterman, like a sculpture, carving this specific piece, this specific monument. And then that's why we might have a similar approaches to some issues, or how we understand God's presence in our life. But in general, we are very individual. And this single individual approach demands from us learning more about who we are and how God communicates with us.
And the other very interesting thing, what I learned, was that God is speaking like our thoughts, the rule when we are going closer from the good to better. Maybe Father, you will explain this rule.
Okay, so it's like, discernment itself has become very popular nowadays because of Pope Francis and the fact that he was a Jesuit. So his papacy, it introduced a lot of that word to the church documents and church teaching. However, we need to understand that discernment is not about deciding whether I choose good or bad. This is not the place for the decision. You don't need a discernment to decide that we Catholics, we Christians, we choose what is good and we reject what is evil. There's no place for discernment. Discernment starts when you want to choose between lesser good and the greater good. And these are technical terms described by St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Society of Jesus. And what is a lesser good and the greater good? These are things that are options for us as a part of our life. And our life is basically based on decision, choice. We are choosing something every day. In this time, like in the digital world, the matter of choice is a huge question, actually, because we need to choose more frequently, more often. We are pushed forward to choose. But among those options, we can choose something which will produce a greater good, or we can choose something that then can produce a lesser, smaller good. And this is the issue that is actually the core or the fundament where the discernment starts. So we as Christians, we want to choose a greater good because we are loved by God. This is the reason. Every time you want to choose a greater good because you have an idea that you want to become an efficient Christian, an efficient Catholic, showing the good quality of your faith. This is not a good reason to start discerning. The only option good for discernment in a typical Catholic Christian way is to see that I am loved by God and I want to promote that love in the world as much as possible. And then you want to make choices that will multiply this love, that will proclaim the good news about God's love in the world as much as possible. When you are attracted by this, you want to choose the greater good then.
Yes, amen. And then also is that rule that when the God coming to the soul who is going from good to the better, it's coming like the drop on the sponge.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful image. Yeah, it says something, this drop like a one by one in a rhythm, in a predictable pace, coming and making the sponge soaked, immersed in God's presence, saturated. It's beautiful because it shows that God is not moody. God is not, unpredictable. And this is something that can produce a lot of peace, that God's presence is filling our hearts and bodies now. Because of that, God's presence, we are capable of living, that we are sustained in our existence by God's presence. This is the good news, right? And then it also, this image coming from St. Ignatius, it also shows that the way how God wants to come to our life is not spectacular.
Yes.
Yeah. That this is... that, when you are reading the Acts of the Apostles and you see how St. Paul became converted, the spectacular falling from the horse, then losing his sight, then receiving back his sight. This is quite extraordinary. Of course, God is capable of doing that, and the history of the church is full of that moments. Even our lives have at least one moment like that. Yeah. But then the rest of our lives, these are those small drops of God's love, coming, and they are not applied to our life. They are shared with a lot of generosity. These are not like drops, like take one pill and come back in a week. You receive those drops every second, and they cannot be stopped. But you can stop yourself from responding to them. You can spend your life being unaware of them. And discernment and this idea of recognizing God's presence in our lives, it gives you the access to this reality. It gives you access to this abundance of love, abundance of joy that is not only present, but also active. And it's waiting to cooperate with it. And now we are 100% Catholics. Cooperation with grace.
Yeah, this is so beautiful. And also there is opposite rule, that it's about the stone. If we are coming from the sin to sin, Lord, it's coming like a little splash on the stone. So this was very interesting for me, that Lord, it's working in different way, depend where we are in life. Maybe you will explain, Father.
This is like we have a different way of communicating with a child, and then different way of communicating with a teenager. And exactly the same happens when our spiritual life is in a different shape, in different mode. St. Ignatius would say that when you are having the life that is actually full of very wrong choices, I mean, you are choosing evil, you are choosing sin, then God, to reach you, he needs to apply a specific way of communication so he can reach your heart. Sin itself gives this condition of my heart to become like a stone, to become very hard. And then how can God enter my heart? Yeah, how can his voice be recognized if I'm hardened, if I'm not capable of receiving these words, if they are bouncing from my mind and my body? So then God needs to be more precise, I would say, to be more direct, also in a sense of causing feelings that might be considered as negative, some sort of lack of patience, some sort of distrust, some sort of negative emotions that are making my life upsetting, even though the choices I'm making, they are producing some temporal joy. But then the rest of that is becoming very unsettled. And this is actually the experience of St. Ignatius. Yeah, he was going through. He was lying in the bed because of having an injury in his leg, and the medicine that time, that was the beginning of 15th century, was making this a little bit messy. His staying in the bed was like months, and he was reading some books about saints because these were the only books he could have that time, and he was actually very lucky having those books. And then he started to recognize different thoughts in his mind, and some of them were the thoughts that after losing them he still felt being happy. He still felt some sort of warmth in his heart. And the other thoughts, they were causing also some joy in his. But then when he was finding himself far from those thoughts, he realized that suddenly there is a sense of bitterness. And you see, these are things that cannot be recognized when you are rushing through your life, when you are pushing forward, like you are making, now I need to do this, I need to do that. No, don't bother me right now. I have other things to do. It's very difficult then to suddenly have this habit to see the difference. Yeah. And you need to invest, you need to put some effort in your life to learn about this, to show yourself that this reality exists. And it's not only something St. Ignatius wrote about, but this is also part of your own life, hidden, sometimes covered by the busyness, the challenges we have, but still active.
Interesting. Do you think that silence during each day, or paying more attention to what you would suggest to us to be able to catch these moments? And if someone is busy all the time, most of us, especially people who have families, children, they are rushing, what they can do?
It sounds very, very easy to say, take a break. It's not easy, in my opinion. It's challenging, actually, when you have a life which is demanding, full of people and needs you want to respond to because you simply love these people. Then having this idea that I want to have 5-minute break and spend it in silence can be very difficult, because I can promise you, the moment when you will start, you will find this silence impossible to achieve, because you will find yourself flooded by feelings, emotions, memories, distractions, everything which is actually present in your life, but you don't have time to recognize it. And this practice to stay in silence and to be attacked by everything which will make this silence impossible is fruitful itself. This practice is fruitful itself.
I think this is very important that you're saying this, Father.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's very easy for a priest to say, you need to pray more. But we have a certain expectations when we start to pray. We want to experience peace. We want to experience this moment of finding ourselves in God's hands. And so you have this, I want this, I want that. And then you start to pray, and you usually receive quite opposite, like a lot of chaos. This is necessary because this mass is in your heart, whether you recognize it or not. And suddenly this moment of prayer allows you to surface this chaos, but not to surface it, to make it present only for yourself. You are making it present in front of God. And this has a healing power. So instead of, if you want to start a life which might be open for discernment, first of all, you need to recognize that you need to be present in front of God. And discernment is not about choosing. Discernment is about being close with God.
Like, this is obvious. At the same time, when people usually asking about discernment, it's about choice. It's more focused on the choice than the presence.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, I think this is the biggest difficulty with the concept of discernment in the church nowadays. We are tempted to use it as an instrument. The discernment is not an instrument. Discernment is a habit of spending my life with God. And then if I have this mindset, if I'm aligned or attuned with God's presence, then suddenly discernment is like my breathing in and breathing out, because I want to choose according to His presence in my life. I want to make decisions that will be connected with my attitude to go through my life with God side by side. And then suddenly it's a completely different story then, because then you're learning about those rules St. Ignatius gave us. You're learning how those rules apply to my own life, because I'm not St. Ignatius. So those rules he gave us, they give you a general concept. Yeah, they are very practical. But how this practical way he gave us has an application in my own life.
I think so. This is other very important thing, because when I meet people, every saint have a different spirituality, and we all need to learn how to apply these all rules to our life. Because if Padre Pio was in the convent and he was praying so many rosaries, and you are a mother of, I don't know, nine, yes, is you have to apply some of the things to your life, but you not copy and paste.
To be inspired, this is how we live. We are listening to stories, and through those stories, we start to change our lives. But if you want to replicate someone's life letter by letter, minute by minute, then you're going to be very upset in the end. Because we are not toys made in a fabric. Yeah, I mean, a factory. Yeah, we are individual creations. So, of course, this promising about St. Ignatius, what he managed to discover in his spiritual life can become a very strong inspiration for all of us. We need to learn more about who we are. I need to learn more about myself, about my personal story, how I was raised, about my talents, about my vices, what are my regular reactions to situations in my life. It's like, it may sound surprising, but going to see a therapist, counseling, it's part of learning who we are, and this will eventually build more healthy and better spirituality you have.
This is very beautiful what you say, because I meet people who struggle, even with mental health. They say, I will pray more. And I think so. This is also important for us to say that, yes. And this is part of learning about ourselves, about our tendencies.
Yes. And this is like my inner life, my emotions, my story, my mental health. These are strings on an instrument, and God wants to play those strings, like to play the music. And this is how he wants to communicate with us. So to learn more how those strings work, what sound is a proper sound, why am I hearing those strange tones that are not maybe making possible the beautiful music in my heart. Yeah, to learn more about them, this is how we will eventually communicate with God. This is one side of this coin, and there is another. When you will flip the coin, on the other side you will find God. And we are interested about the whole coin, not only about a facet of that coin.
Very beautiful. Padre, could you share maybe stories in your life when you make some decisions, how you discern and which rules you apply in those situations?
You know what? I think that we are all called to, I will use a rhetoric phrase, to write our own spiritual exercises. I mean, we are called to learn who we are and to learn how God communicates with us, and then to use it as a way of applying those rules when we want to live with God. So, for example, for me, and this is my rule, I'm an author of that rule, but it works with me. Every time I start to feel that God is communicating with me, like I have an idea, the first thing I'm doing, I'm rejecting this. When this idea comes back to me, I reject it again, because I learned through my experience that sometimes those ideas, they are not coming from God. They are coming from my ego, from the fact that I want to, to do something and I have power to do so. And it's very easy to confuse them with God's communication. And I learned that God's communication is different than my own my aspirations, because God is very persistent, but persistent in a sense like I can repeat you that 100 times because I love you. And myself, I'm not so persistent. So after the third time, those ideas that are coming from me, they have a tendency to vanish. And those ideas that come from God, they have a tendency to come again, and they come again with the same peace. They are so constant. And this is like this image coming from St. Ignatius, those drops of water falling on a sponge. And we have, it's like when we start to discern, we have this fear that God will wants something from us, and we won't be able to respond to that, and then we will make a mistake. Of course, we will. But we have solutions for our mistakes. When it's a sin, we are going to the confession. But we can bring to God also those moments when when we eventually chose a lesser good and talk with him about that. And this is not the reason to be upset. This is the reason to learn more. What is my vocation? Yeah. What is my calling God is giving me? So to reject to make mistakes, yeah, in our spiritual life, this is part of this life.
Yes, this is the most scary thing, I think. So we all trying to not do mistakes. And we do even more.
Of course. Yes, exactly. And it's like, even you'll take, of course, confession and what we bring to the confession. This is not about discernment. This is about sin. But come on, I can promise you, you and I, we will go to the confession at least in the future soon.
Yes.
And we won't celebrate victories there.
Yes.
We will celebrate failures.
Yes.
And actually, the fact that we will celebrate them is not a figure of speech. This is possible because of Jesus Christ. This is through him we are capable of celebrating our failures, especially those failures that are causing a lot of pain in our lives. But then, so if we have this universal platform, if we have Jesus Christ, giving us space to learn from our mistakes, why not applying this attitude in a field of spiritual life and discernment? Instead of saying, there was this greater good, but I made a mistake. Yeah, I don't know. I'm so stuck. I'm not sure. What should I do? Try to do something, and God will lead you. His love and the fact that you want to maintain the genuine relation with him, it will bring you more light to choose greater good.
This is very interesting, and I love that you shared that you're trying to reject.
Yeah.
In my case, when I look on my life, I have more tendency to reject too much and delaying stuff. And for example, even starting channel, I think so this was God's provision because I delaying this, I don't know, I think so more than 10 years.
Okay.
And many things, even marriage very late in my life. I feel like I could discern and not making decision all my life sometimes to kind of be sure.
Perpetual discernment.
Yes. So in my case, I'm trying to at some point make a decision and act, even I am not sure, because I feel I will be never in my life sure of nothing. So this is like what I love, Father, that you shared, that depend of our tendencies we have to learn. And I feel like now I'm doing faster decisions and I'm trying to observe if I did correctly or not, because I have these other tendencies.
But this is it. You see what I shared as my own spiritual exercises, as my own book of my spiritual life. You cannot use it in your own life.
Yes.
And for me, I need to prolong the decision because I'm capable of acting. Like, let's do it. Yeah. Let's make it right now. Yeah. This is a brilliant idea. We will have a lot of good fruits from this. Yeah. It's not working in my life because my temper is different. And we are different, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong in that you have a tendency to make everything longer, to wait.
To be sure, 100%, but it's never life, I think so.
But
some
you know,
people
it's
have,
like, this is your beauty. This is who you are. In this feature of who you are, there is hidden God's presence. There are treasures there. There might be also some difficulties, but you learn about yourself eventually. You realize who you are, what inclinations you might have, and you are simply applying this conditions to the fact that you are immersed by God's love.
And also what I see in myself, I have to be careful about when I start something and continue, to be honest. If I'm supposed to maybe stop, okay, I did this step to try to not push to the end, because if I start something, I want to finish. I don't like to not
so
finish.
To have freedom to abandon something in the middle.
Yes.
And you see, and it's like, you were not always like that. What you know about yourself now, it wasn't present. You were not aware of that 10 years ago.
No.
And you learned, let's be honest, you learned from mistakes.
Yes. So this is the thing. Yeah. I was so afraid of doing mistakes. I feel like I'm doing more mistakes now, but I think so this is also growing my humbleness. At the same time, I'm learning a lot about myself and how God is directing me. And I think He's teaching me a lot through my mistakes too.
You know, mistakes are directly connected with vulnerability, and vulnerability is the only option that allows you to receive God's love. This image of sponge and then stone. Stone is bulletproof, and stone has no capacity to receive love as it is. And then on the other hand, moving from one good to the other and being like this sponge, you are vulnerable. You are capable of experiencing pressure or influence of the other side. And mistakes, they show us that we are humans, that we are human beings, and the fact that we are capable of making those mistakes is actually showing us that we are capable of receiving God's love.
And this is also very interesting, especially in the communities. I feel that we have different characters. And I could see there are some people up front, they saying, they know, and many people follow them. And it's hard to them receive the information. No, maybe this is not this direction. No, because I have this thought, and I know that if I have this thought, it's God always, yes? So I think this is beautiful to acknowledge that we all make mistakes and to acknowledge also our tendencies.
I think in community life, especially when you have a collection of individualities, and you want to build something together, it's very difficult to share our failures because it's very difficult to make me exposed, to make me vulnerable. But at the same time, Catholic Christian communities, they circulate around Jesus Christ who is exposed in his vulnerability. And we are celebrating this vulnerability in each sacrament. Confession, one option, but then taking Eucharist, and vulnerable presence of God in Eucharistic gathering. Not only in bread and wine, but also in God's word that is very easy to be omitted. I mean because we are distracted. And God chooses to be present in such a way, that I can lose a focus, lose attention because I have a difficulty in my life going through, and suddenly I realize this is the end of the Mass, or presence of God, vulnerable presence of God in the congregation itself, I mean, among people. This is all about being fragile. And this sensitivity we have, it's actually trained through discernment, that we are learning about sensitive nature we have usually hidden behind the performance we are doing outside. I'm a deputy chancellor, so I'm the guy. But then going deeper, I see that I still have those fears, that I still have those emotions that are unsettled, and I can leave them alone. I mean, I can choose not to touch them. But there is other option. I can start to expose them to God, allow them to enter. And it's like suddenly the meeting point shows that there is a space to be immersed not only in these success stories. I mean, this performance in the community. I'm the boss. I'm preaching here. I'm giving a testimony, and so many people suddenly come back to God. But to stay on track. Because these are like a fireworks in those moments. They are necessary to celebrate 4th of July, for example. But then the everyday life comes back. And what we need in the communities, we need people who stay on track, who are present, who are taught to behave exactly the same way God is behaving in our lives. I mean, those drops every day coming, being repetitive. It sounds like boring, right? But there is a lot of grace hidden there.
Yes. And when we talk about the fruits, sometimes we are focused on the outside success, but the fruits, joy, peace, patience, they are fruits they really say if something was from God.
We have a tendency to forget that one of Jesus' names is a Prince of Peace. And the Prince of Peace, what it means in my life. And actually peace, the idea, the concept of peace with a capital P, is crucial when we talk about discernment, because you need to learn how this peace articulates in your heart, what it means for you to feel peace, what this condition looks like, how is it? And I can give you my own experience, but this won't be your experience. You need to learn to experience that. That's why it's useful to go through spiritual exercises, not as a way to, I remember when I shared with my parents that I'm going for 5 days retreat in silence. They were mortified because it was like, what are you doing? That was before I joined the Society of Jesus. before becoming a Jesuit, but because this is not regular, this kind of activity, but this is only a training, giving a space to learn what it means in my life. How is it to experience God's peace? And how is this connected with my emotions, with my inner self? And then you can take that experience to your everyday life and start to actively seek this experience through what you are doing in your work, in your free time, wherever you are.
Thank you, Father, for sharing this. So it's interesting. Your parents support your decision to join Jesuits?
Now they support.
But before, no?
Yeah, there was a lot of turmoil in that. I mean, it was difficult, especially for my father at the beginning.
Okay.
But you know what? It's like he really wanted me to finish my studies. I studied for 6 years before joining the Society of Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to stop. I wanted to skip my studies and to join immediately after I felt that. Yeah. And the story is when I felt that first time, I then spent 3 years thinking. And when I finally reached the conclusion that this is it, I wanted to join the Society of Jesus. But then I realized I'm still unsettled, that I'm pushing myself too much. Like I'm trying to achieve something. And I really wanted to be honest with myself, deciding about going to the Society of Jesus or not. So when I realized that there is lack of honesty, I said to myself, nope, you're not going anywhere. This is not who you are. You're not honest. Something is not working. And that was a very good idea because it gave me, from this time when I stopped myself from joining and I spent 1.5 more years thinking, I have so many friends from that time who are still my friends. And what I want to say, it's like, I know you have this tendency to make things longer. But when it comes to crucial decisions, I think it's important to achieve them in the moment when you gave a lot of space for God to show what is what he wants from you. But then you also need to achieve the moment I achieved, to reach the moment when I realize there's nothing more God can do to convince me. I remember that when I was still not sure, like I have this feeling, I want to be a Jesuit. It feels like this is my path. But on the other hand, there are those other options like staying here, doing doctorate in civil engineering. I had that offer on the table. And I asked myself once, what else should happen so I could choose to become a Jesuit? And I realized there is nothing more God can do to convince me. It's all about me right now. Like even angel coming and saying to me, Peter, this is God's idea. Trust me. I realized I remembered myself thinking that wouldn't convince me. And that was very important, to achieve the moment when this is all about saying yes or no.
Very beautiful, very interesting, but I agree with this.
Don't you think that the moment when you decided to become wife was actually the same?
Yes.
And there was a lot of like uncertainty in the sense like, you don't know how it will work.
And I would say in my case, I kind of realized that both direction will be pleasing God.
Exactly.
I know that some people have a vocation one or the other. In my case, I felt like God giving me a freedom. I was discerning also other path.
To explain that moment using Ignatian spirituality, even if you choose a lesser good, God will still love you.
Yes, and he can always, even from the mistake, those who love the Lord.
He's doing that all the time. It's like he started many years ago when he created Adam and Eve. And then he's like still playing this game, navigating those mistakes through those mistakes. But we are so, this is the sickness coming from this idea that we want to be perfect, that we want to choose wisely. Of course, we should choose wisely, but come on. If you will make a mistake, I can promise you, God will never leave you alone.
Yes, and I believe that if we love him, he can from everything, even where it's a sin, there is even more grace. So I believe that.
But we have those quotes, we have those cards on the table, and we still repeat the same pattern of trying to be more perfect than we need to be.
Yes. And the ultimate goal is the holiness. So from this perspective, of course, we have to discern, we have to spend the time, but at the same time with this thought that the ultimate goal is the holiness and the heaven. If we make wrong decision, life can be long, but generally life is very short.
It is. And also, I don't think our vocation is to always choose a greater good.
Really?
Our vocation is to choose God.
Yes. So I agree that, yes, to choose God.
And if greater good becomes your God, then there is something wrong with your spiritual life. There is something wrong with your life. Yeah.
This is beautiful. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like if the new name for God in your life is discernment, it worries me a lot. But if your discernment is the way how you talk about God's presence in your life, this is it.
Yes, this is so beautiful.
Yeah. And you know what? One more thing. It's like, Pope Francis introduced that idea of communal discernment, the community deciding through discernment. It's very difficult to achieve that. It's very difficult because to achieve that, you need to have all the members of the discerning community you need to have them in that style. That discernment is not an aim. It's only the way how we talk about God's presence in our life. And it's difficult because then I can see even myself how often I have a tendency to, I want to choose wisely. And then I'm like confusing what is important, what is not important. I mean, I'm placing discernment over God's presence.
Yes, I can see that.
That's why I think communal discernment is reserved only for those who are in a very close relation with God. In the history of the Society of Jesus, it happened only once, the communal discernment.
Oh, wow.
This is not a popular story. It happened only once. It was the decision whether the third Jesuits should go to Holy Land and to serve as missionaries, or they should go to opt their will to work for the church. And they decided to discern in such a way that each member of the first Jesuits, there were 8 of them, as I remember, maybe I'm wrong. So Ignatius was among them. They decided to have a 1-month spiritual exercises in silence, each of them separately. And after that month, they came back and they shared their perspective, their insight about what they should do. And they all said the same. We should go to talk with Pope, even though they had a very serious drive to serve in the Holy Land. And that was the only time when the communal discernment appeared in the history of the Society of Jesus in a clear way, but you can see like they decided to spend a month in silence, each of them. Show me the community that is capable of doing the same nowadays. Yeah.
Yes.
So instead of having this aim to discern as a community, the better way is simply to discern alone, to apply this style of finding God in all things, and then to build the community the way that we are all having this style. This is enough.
Interesting. When I talk with people, especially those who discern marriage, even in my life, I could see at some point the most important was the decision. I want to make some decision. And I think so it's sometimes beautiful to hear this from outside. We know this, but sometimes when we hear this, analyze this different way. And that give us the freedom to make some decisions.
If there's no freedom, I don't want to be the part of this game.
Yes, this is
really. Because if we start to consider that there is some sort of sentence, like God becomes like a judge and he's like forcing you to do something, this hardness, this everything becomes stiff, petrified, How can I respond to love if I'm in this golden iron?
Yes.
How can I be agile to God's presence in my life if my movements are so corrupted by law, for example? And this is actually the biggest issue Jesus had with Pharisees. Law was perfect then. Those rules, they were clear, obvious. This is what you should do. This is what you shouldn't do. And what was Jesus' accusation against Pharisees was the fact that because of obeying the law, they lost capacity to experience God's presence. So instead of forcing or being focused on choosing, and it's like it's easy for us to talk about choice right now because you already did made your decision, I made mine, so we are like on the other side of the river. But to those who are where the choice is pending, this is still an option. Please remember that God is with you, that God is not the one Sometimes choice can be presented that way. When you will choose wisely, I will join you. And God, and sometimes we are cheating ourselves saying this to that this is how it works. Yeah. No, this is not true. If God's love is like that, then he's not a father for us, because this love has if love is conditional, this is not love.
Yes.
So in the choice you are right now, please remember that God is present with you, and he will stay with you in every option that will become the part of your life after the choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would maybe add that look on desires of your heart. So whenever we choose, there will be hardships, there will be crosses, but ultimate goal, it's not the choice, but it's God himself.
To follow, because this is very important, what you mentioned, what you added about the desires of our hearts. Look at the desires of your heart, and try to see where your heart start to flourish, when you are placing yourself in that direction, how you see your heart then. Is it a meadow full of flowers, or is it a single flower and nothing more? Try to place yourself that way. Try to think about yourself in those directions. Because I remember myself, it was very difficult for me to decide to become a Jesuit, and as a consequence to not have a family. But to see the possible options and my heart flourishing in those options as a Jesuit, that was something that placed me in that direction. It's like every time I have doubts. Usually this is strongly related with difficulties, in a sense, like I'm not addressing some crucial issues that are important in my life. Rest, enough food, or a balance between prayer life and activity in my life. Simple things. And to learn about this, that this is how I react. These are my signals, that something is missing. Instead of saying that I made the wrong decision. This is also part of that.
And I think so we're touching here desolation and consolation, these two terms. And I think so this is very helpful to share.
I think this is even more important than those rules about discerning, because consolation and desolation, these are two terms that are technical terms introduced by St. Ignatius to learn more about our spiritual life. And basically they say that our spiritual life has this dynamic between consolation and desolation. That sometimes we are in a mode where we feel settled, peaceful, joyful, loved, and everything goes smooth and easy. And this, for Ignatius, is consolation. But there is an opposite state called desolation. And there we find ourselves unsettled, worried, distracted, not loved, somehow ill, in a sense like something is wrong. I don't want to be like that. But there's nothing I can do. And basically, St. Ignatius says that this is how it works, and the quality of your spiritual life shouldn't be measured through the amount of consolations and desolations. It should be measured by the fact that your life is traveling from one side to the other, like a wave, ups and downs. And then St. Ignatius says that every time you have a consolation, you should charge your batteries. You should open yourself for this peaceful presence of God in your life, as exposing yourself to the sun, during the holidays. But please remember, this time will end, and desolation will appear in the future. And then when the desolation comes, St. Ignatius says, okay, this is the time which is temporal, as consolation is temporal. And it's like this is the period, it appears. Please remember the time when you were in consolation, and try to, because of this desolation, try to not change the decisions you made.
This is
Because when we are unsettled, we have this tendency to find the reason why we are in such a bad condition. And what we are doing then, we are taking a screwdriver and we are trying to lose some screws. This is not working. I should rearrange it. I should change it. It won't work in the spiritual life, because in the spiritual life, you have consolations and desolations. And this is how it works. And I can promise you, you will have them by the end of your life many times. And this fluctuation, like going from one side to the other, it gives you this dynamic how God is communicating with you. sometimes people think that consolation is the best moment to make a decision. This is not true.
Oh, really?
Yes, because in consolation, we feel like we are bulletproof.
Oh, yes, that is true.
Like it's like, I'm in the consolation so I can move this mountain. It's not a problem for me. Why not choosing this? The best moment to make a decision is actually between consolation and desolation.
Interesting.
This is this line which can be drawn from, like, you have this wave upside down, and then there is a line where this is the best moment. You are moving from one opposite to the other opposite, and then you will find yourself in this in between, where you are aware that God loves you, but you are also aware of the fact that how your life looks like when God is not present.
Okay. Yes. It's interesting because
and then you are choosing.
Usually heard that make a decision during consolation, but never make a decision during the desolation. And the second one helped me a lot. I think so. This is very important. Never do.
It's like obviously it's like in desolation we have this tendency to rearrange things. Like we immediately blame ourselves for that something went wrong.
Yes.
So this is a bad idea. But in consolation, we are super optimistic.
Yes, this is true too.
So, for example, I told you before we started the conversation, I'm really grateful by the fact that I don't need to arrange all those things. I mean, microphones and everything. But I know that in the time of consolation, in the peak of my consolation, I can see myself being you.
Okay.
But it won't work because I don't have a patience to do this. That's why it's like we need to be realistic.
Yes, so this is absolutely the same about the prayer and the time of the prayer. What you're saying, Father, I think so. This is very common. People who converting, they often have this prayer life. They neglect a little bit the family. They are all the time in the church. When I'm observing people, we all going through the same stages. I think so. This is the time, but someone on the side reminding, listen, this is not this way. Maybe this is the time in your life, but will be not always like that. And to have a realistic decision about prayer time too. I like in my life to have a specific time, which I submit myself. I rearrange this time, what I doing this time. Sometimes it's more silence, sometimes it's more feeding myself with the Bible scripture. But keeping this time and this realistic time that I know that in the hard time I can also fulfill this time, it's something very helpful in my life. But I know that in these optimistic times, I will be multiplying this and this will make me tired.
And you know what? It's like, it's very easy to pray when you are in a consolation. It's a challenge to pray when you are in a desolation. But then actually comes the question about why am I doing this? And desolation has its function as well. Because to be a golden boy, when there are no obstacles, there's no achievement there. But to be a golden boy when there are challenges, and I don't want to say that God is the one sending those challenges. I just want to say that if it's all about God, it should produce in my life the moment when I will choose Him no matter what.
Yes.
And choosing this, achieving that level of my own spiritual development, it cannot be achieved through the first conversion. I think it's obvious. It's like this is a simple dynamic of every relation we have. You need to allow water to flow in this river for years to finally reach the moment when you can say something, when you can show by your acts that you love deeper. And you needed those years to reach this moment when you finally can say so, even though you were repeating that, saying, I love you so much, And this is, the conclusion of spiritual exercises. There is a quote from St. Ignatius saying that love is founded, I'm not sure whether I'll translate it correctly from Polish, but the sense will be, love is more founded on deeds than words, It's, if you want to talk about love, you can do so, but it won't be powerful enough comparing to what you can show as the articulation of your love. So then to stay praying when you are in the dark valley, in your desolation, this is the way how you show that you love. And sometimes it's difficult. And to show yourself that I'm in desolation and I don't know how to pray, and to be honest with myself, I think this is also the one step forward in my own spiritual development. Instead of, pretending, or instead of stopping praying and then avoiding to talk about that, be honest and God will find you.
And when we talk about the prayer, we are all the time immersed in the Lord, but it's like a special time, I would say. Like in a marriage, you can be around your family and children all the time, but each of us need a special time when we are just focused on each other, on your child or on your husband, wife. So I feel like the prayer is this kind of time, and we all need this. And I don't know, Father, if you agree with me, but I think it's important to have a concrete commitments, like a time or I don't know, something else, something measurable, that during these times of when it's harder to pray, to kind of keep consistent, at least even if I don't have a focus, at least just be in the presence.
Our lives is manageable only if you have habits. Yeah. And those commitments, they need to become habits. Yeah. And habits are making our daily routines. They are making our lives capable to be navigated. When it comes to prayer, I would say that those commitments, those habits, they need to be enveloped in some sort of ritual. I mean, they need to have a flavor of ceremony. And I don't want to say that we need to have exactly the same prayer every day. Like you mentioned, yeah, sometimes it's a rosary, sometimes I'm having a simple conversation with God, sometimes it's a Bible, yeah, and you have those options on the table, yeah, this freedom, but it needs to have like some sort of structure, yeah,
yeah,
like a candle or some sort of token that is visible outside, so it will show you what's happening inside. And we should find this on our own. Of course, for us Catholics, the church activity will give you some insight, yeah, like candles, incense, yeah, staying, sitting, singing, but this can be an inspiration. You need to find yourself in this. It needs to be your own.
Yeah. When I was a child, they teaching us this, but I kind of neglected. Oh, they're not that important. This is just the outside thing. But now I more see that this is important. I can see that also our body get used to the habit. Saint Ignatius mentioned that before you go to prayer place, be aware that you're going to meet Lord. And I see this habit is tune my brain to be focused, and it's easier.
Yeah, and this is also about my body. Yeah, it's like when I pray, where is this prayer? Modern world would say that everything happens in my brain, but this is such a reduction. I disagree. It's like when we are talking right now, is it my mind communicating with your mind? Yeah, it's like, and you're smiling right now, and so your face is only an instrument. I disagree. This is like the human being, yeah, in the completeness of who I am, yeah. And the same happens with the prayer. So to see that what is my body's position? Is it comfortable? Is it not too comfortable? Because that's the rule, practical rule. If my prayer is in a very comfortable position, for sure it will end up next day morning because I will fall asleep.
Yes,
yeah. But it's not about causing pain as well. And to learn how my body reacts to this, what is the best option for me? And sometimes, of course, I can be inspired, but there are some prayer positions that I cannot achieve them. Sorry, my body is not going to work with that.
This is also important for those who learning or in the beginning. When I was a child, it was like, I have to kneel. And I know that at some point I was so struggling more with my body, especially if you are longer. And then the realization, I can see it and this is no problem. So I think finding this balance, but also trying, and part of the prayer can be kneeling, part can be sitting, part can be standing. It's not like the one, but to finding the way and each stage of our life. I feel like sometimes we need more scripture, sometimes we need more silence to balance. We all need both. So just to balance in between them.
Yes, and also space to say thank you.
Yes,
yeah,
that's true.
It's like to be grateful in a sense, to thank for what I have in my life, who I am, what are my talents, to be grateful for the people that are present in my life. Gratitude is a gate. You know, it's like when I studied theology, during the lectures, one of the professors told us the meaning of the word Eucharist. And when he said that Eucharist, it comes from Greek gratefulness, saying thank you, I was disappointed at the beginning because I felt like, really? It's like, come on, such a important moment. And we are saying that this is about saying thank you. And then I realized that this is it. This is actually the only thing I can do in front of God without pretending. So to give ourselves space to say thank you, this will tune you to listen God.
Thank you, Father, for this tip. And maybe on the end, we'll finish about explaining a little bit about Ignatian examination.
Oh yeah, Ignatian Examen. You know what? You need to be very careful with this. Yeah. The idea is very simple. You have 5 steps, and it says that to go through your day and to see how God worked through that day. And it has 5 steps. First is gratitude. Then the second is inviting Holy Spirit to help. Third step is actually going through, like Ignatius says, hour by hour, minute by minute, to see how it was. Fourth step is expressing gratitude again, or saying, that wasn't good enough, so for that I'm sorry. And the fifth is just saying, what can I change? So those like 5 fingers on a palm. But why I'm saying you need to be careful, because it's not evaluating committee. It's not a commission coming to check whether you were good Christian or not. This is a prayer which allows you to open yourself for God's presence. And this presence is not a judge. It's not a military man. It's a loving Father coming to show you his presence in your life. So then the space to make mistakes becomes obvious and becomes an option. You cannot make mistakes in front of a soldier or a judge. Yeah. But here you are allowed to. And you are also allowed to reach only the first step, to spend your prayer saying thank you. And that's okay.
This is beautiful, yes.
That this is not about achieving something. Yeah. I still, sorry, I plan to have this 10 minutes for my examen, but now after 10 minutes, I'm still saying thank you. So I need to spend 50 more minutes because I have those 4 fingers still to do. No, this is only a guidance, but this is not about rules. This is about meeting with God.
Amen. Yes. Thank you. This is very beautiful. And I think so with this beautiful ending, we'll finish. Thank you, Father, for your time.
Thank you so much.
If you like this episode, please follow and subscribe.